food he didn't eat yet. Still in there.
So you've got my belly full, now I'm walking in that. Such a rough life. So you guys lodging here?
Yes, in the cabin.
Okay. Yeah.
So we're actually, well, we are the 1220 and the 1240 because I had my grandson who was supposed to come with me, but he got sick.
Yeah. So when the sloths are first born, they have that darker coloration pretty much for the most part. What's on his head is the color that he was all over his body beforehand. And they're born with a lot shorter hair, and as they grow, that hair will grow a little bit longer as well. They'll eventually grow into their adult hair, which is that lighter coloration.
So is he two or three?
Two. So he's got two on the front and three on the back, and it can be kind of confusing because when you think about toes, you think about it being on their back feet, but all sloths have three toes on their backs, and it's the fronts where they differ. Yeah.
Were those three or two that we saw? Yeah.
Probably mostly the three-toed. Those are a lot more common in the rainforest. And it's really difficult to keep three-toed sloths in captivity because their diets are extremely sensitive. They can really only eat the leaves of the Cercophia trees that they live in, and they don't naturally grow here, so you have to be going back and forth to pick up those leaves on a weekly basis. But there are a lot of differences between the two. The three-toed sloths tend to be a lot smaller, whereas the two-toed can get to be up to 20 pounds. And just the appearance of them as well, the three-toed sloths have kind of that darker band across their eyes. And then a lot of times you'll see pictures of them where they're hanging onto a branch upside down with all 4 feet. The camera's back below them. They've got their head turned all the way back behind looking at the camera. And that's because they actually have 3 extra vertebrae in their cervical spine that allows them to do that. They can't rotate it all the way around like an owl, but they can turn it all the way back and then back around. The two-toed sloth cannot do that. They lack that vertebrae in their cervical spine, but they make up for it in their lumbar spine. So they actually have the ability to turn their spine all the way back like that and look back behind them. So oftentimes what they do is that, since they're already extremely slow and low in energy reserves, it takes a lot more energy. If they're on this branch and there's branches down below them that they want some of those leaves, instead of having to go all the way to the base, the trunk of that tree, go down and then back out onto that limb, all they'll do is extend down from the branch that they're on and reach for those leaves down there. And when they're doing that, when they're extended all the way down, if there's some more that's behind them that they want, they just rotate their spine back and they can get that.
That's amazing.
Yeah. And then the three-toed sloths actually have a little bit of a tail as well. And it's thought that the three-toed sloths have an even greater population of moths that live on them because when they come down to use the bathroom, they kind of wiggle their little tail around in the dung pile that they already produced, and that allows a lot more of those moths to crawl up onto them.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Because they do require that direct contact to be able to come up onto them.
Use ouch.
It's been about half of our time if you guys wanted to trade over now, so.
No, I don't want to.
Well, too bad.
This is going to be so hard.
I know we started like 5 minutes late, so we'll go over just a little bit as well, so.
I know you're so comfy.
I don't want to let you go.
Just had to get a picture of him stretching.
Can you give me my phone? Thanks.
So he'll wrap his legs around you first, and then we can support underneath them. Dash is very easily distracted by movement, and so that's why I always sit up here to be out of his, at least beside him in a way, because if I'm standing back behind him, he's like breaking his neck to look back at me. And so I don't really have a whole lot of people in here at a time, and his encounters are just 20 minutes at a time. Because he's just a baby, he's still learning everything and all of his surroundings and whatnot.
still got sweet potato hanging out of your mouth.
So in the wild, a lot of people wonder about, you know, what's ever after a sloth, what's the life expectancy of a sloth and things like that. So in the wild, we don't know exactly the life expectancy of a sloth because there's not been one scientist has been able to track a sloth from birth until geriatrics. And that's because they're pretty difficult to track. Their necks are like the same size as their head, so they get their tracking collars off pretty easily. We expect it to be about 15 to 20, because that's a little bit longer than that usually is what they live in captivity. But the oldest sloth that we know of that was born and raised in captivity was named Jan. He lived in a zoo in Germany and just passed away this past August actually, so about a year ago. And he was 54 years old when he passed, so they can live pretty long, healthy lives. It's not typical that they live that long, but with the right dietary, you know, diet and nutrition and everything that they can definitely can.
When did he pass?
Last August, yeah, so almost a year ago.
Born when you were born, really, right? Because you're 50, you're gonna be 55.
Yes, I'm 54. He's the same age
So
as me.
we might have been a couple months older.
Yeah, wow.
We're supposed to be looking that way.
I'm sorry.
Scratch under that chin.
I know, it's very tempting.
To touch his little nose.
And you would think too that, you know, dogs, they like that the cat scritches with their nails, but they cannot stand it. It feels like, you know, something trying to get a hold of them, so just open-handed like that's how they like it. But in the wild, the number one thing that's out to get a sloth and is the most efficient hunter is harpy eagle. So their talons work pretty similarly to how a sloth's claws work, where when they're clamped down on something, they're not letting go until they decide to. You're not going to be able to pry that out. And so the claws of a sloth, once they're hooked down over that branch, it's a lot more difficult to pull them down off that branch than it is to lift them up off of that branch. So if an eagle were to grab a leg and pull upwards, they get that sloth a lot more off the branch a lot easier than they do a jaguar or an ocelot pulling down. But that's kind of the number two thing for a sloth is jaguars and ocelots. They can see those pretty easy. And if they're daring enough to go out on that limb, so, you know, they're not as successful because they're on top of that branch and the sloth is on the bottom of the branch, but they do attempt it quite often. Now snakes, on the other hand, cannot really detect a sloth, so they hunt through temperature variations and sense of smell, neither of which the sloth has, so the sloth can't maintain their own body temperature, so they're the same temperature as their environment, and then they have all of that moss and algae and everything growing on them, and since they don't have any natural scent glands, musk glands, odor, or anything like that to them, they basically smell like the rest of the rainforest. So, and they're eating the leaves that they're, you know, the trees that they're living in, so if a snake were to find a sloth, it would just be by happenstance.
You can use your phone because it's touch sensitive. You press a certain.
I took several.
Yeah, I think I'm okay.
I need to start learning the ways, where the camera is at on all these different types of phones, because a lot of people will come and they just have one person, then I gotta take all these pictures, and I'm like, I don't know how to work your phone, and I don't wanna look like I'm going through your stuff.
Yeah.
Because it's, you know, a lot of people get, you know, especially with Zoe, because she's almost 20 pounds, and, you know, she's a lot harder to hold, so they're like trying to, with one hand, like.
Right, yes.
I weighed Zoe yesterday right before she went to the bathroom and she was 22.6. So I had definitely been undershooting it. I was not telling people she weighed that much, so when I weighed her, I was like, man, girl, you have to slack off on the veggies.
Yeah, we're at 2 and 230, I think.
Oh, okay, so it's
How many can come in at one time?
It depends on how many you book. So it's, if you booked for 2, that's the max that can come out. Yeah.
I booked us separately because my grandson was gonna come with us and
Oh.
he's too young to come
Yeah.
in, so we were gonna trade off, so I don't know if we could do it at the same time. And
So you
Unless
have,
somebody
so
else.
there's, it's one book for 2:30.
one booked at 2 and one at 2:30.
see.
I don't know if they got anyone else.
Could we
but,
like sit in here together and then switch
Yeah.
off? Or, like,
Unless,
switch
unless
off?
somebody else is booked, because I can't.
Oh,
I don't know how
right,
many
true.
people can come.
So
in.
Christina and Kelsey,
Oh, okay.
Okay,
Yeah.
so you're with somebody
Yeah,
else
I'm with
then.
somebody else.
Yeah.
Okay.
so that's at 2, and then at 2:30, yeah, there's a Christina and Michael. So,
Yeah.
Okay.
yeah. So you'll both be with another person.
I wonder if Kelsey and Michael are together.
Yeah.
And if they would want to.
Yeah,
Yeah, they're both on the line. I have to ask them.
yeah, because if they'd rather
Yeah,
switch
if
and
they
be
wanna
together,
together,
if they're,
then we'd be willing to do
yeah.
that. It's just that, yeah, because I know that my grandson couldn't hang out in here, so one of us had to be out with him.
Yeah. Those slots book up pretty quickly, especially on Saturdays, so they probably 2 other people snag those.
Yes.
Yeah.
We'll have to see.
Yeah, if they're together, we'll definitely be happy to switch.
They're both non-lodging, so there's a possibility.
Yeah.
Still got that sleep hanging out the corner of his mouth there.